Alright guys, so in this video, what we want is to add audio to the attack animations for our avatar. So let's go ahead and take a look at the behavior that we want to create. So for the purposes of this video, what I want to do is switch to our one-handed weapon by pressing 1 in play mode, and that will give our avatar a sword here, and now switches her into her one-handed combat idle animation. Now if I click the right mouse button, she will perform a one-handed attack in the direction of the mouse. And this is her one-handed attack animation, and this is the animation that I want to add audio to. So what I want, looking at this as a sound designer, is I want to create a whooshy, scrapey kind of sound effect onto this animation, because she's not hitting anything. The sword is just slicing through the air. Now in real life, this probably wouldn't make very much of a sound. It'd be a very, very subtle sound of the sword displacing the air as it moved. However, because this is a video game, we want to make this larger than life. So we're going to add a whoosh and a kind of a metal scrape sound, which really puts an edge on the sound and makes it sound professional. But let's take a look at this animation first. It goes by very, very fast, but there's a lot to it. So as you could see, she'll raise her hand to behind her head and then bring the sword down. So there's actually two actions there: raising it above the head and then bringing it down. There's two stages to this animation. We have to choose as sound designers how we want to treat that. Do we want to put a sound on each part, on each stage? Do we want a sound for when she raises the sword above her head and when she swings it in the attack? Do we want to add a sound to when she raises it above her head and then brings the sword down in an attack? Or do we want to just add a sound for when she brings the sword down? For the purposes of this video, I'm going to add a sound to both. So remember, I'm going to enter back into play mode here. The behavior that we want, I'm going to select 1 to bring the sword in hand. The behavior that we want for the purposes of this video is a sound when she raises the sword above her head and then when she brings it down. So like a whooshing, whooshing, something like that, right? So that's going to be 2 sounds, and we need to add the calls to these events on the animation. So the first part of getting this set up is setting up our events in Wwise. So let's go ahead and set up our event. Now, we already have an attack event here. We could do this one of 2 ways. We can put both stages of that audio, the initial stage and then the attack stage, in one event, or we can create an event for each stage, which would mean 2 events. So here's what I'm going to do. For this particular animation, I'm going to actually create 2 events. And I'm going to create a folder and call it attack instead of having an event called attack. Oh, okay. Let's see. It's giving me a complaint. Delete. I'm going to delete this attack event. I'm going to create a folder called attack. And then I'm going to create another folder called one-handed, or 1H for one-handed. And for the first stage of my attack sequence, I'm going to create an event called pre-swing, and then another event called swing. So remember, we have 2 stages to our animation. We have the pre-swing when she brings the sword over her head, then the swing when she brings it down in her attack. So I'm going to go ahead and create 2 events to correspond to those 2 stages, the pre-swing for the first part and the swing for the second part. Now remember that we need to add these events to our sound bank. So we haven't done that yet. So we have our sound bank manager here, and if we are in some other menu, we can press F7 to bring it up. We need to add the swing and the pre-swing events to our sound banks. So if you can see here in the event editor, we have swing and pre-swing events that are both missing audio actions. Let's go ahead and ignore the missing part for now and just add swing and pre-swing by shift clicking and selecting both of them and clicking and dragging them to our player sound bank, since these are player sounds. Okay, we could see here in the inclusion window that swing and pre-swing have been added to the player sound bank. So I'm going to hit Control S just to save, but I'm not going to generate my sound banks just yet because we're not done. Now we have to create our sound effects in our audio tab. So here in the actor mixer hierarchy, I'm going to create a swing and pre-swing sounds. So let's think about this. Let's give this some thought. Like I said here, when taking a look at the animation, let's go ahead and press 1 to bring up our sword. We want like a shing, 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 something like that, like a whoosh when she brings it over her head, and then a shing when she brings it down. Whooshing, whooshing. So that's going to need a whoosh sounds for both stages, and then like a shinging, scraping sound for one. So so in our Wwise setup here, let's go ahead and set up 2 objects, and they're both going to be random containers because we're going to need whoosh assets and scrape assets, and those are both going to be randomized. So let's create a random container for whoosh, and then a random container for shing or scrapes. Let's call it scrapes. Scrape. Okay, so we don't have any assets to put in here yet, so let's go ahead and create those. And if you want to skip ahead past the creation part, that's great. If you want to continue watching, you can see how I go through the process of creating my scrape and whoosh assets.